In the world of WWE, the spotlight always shines bright, but not everyone gets a happy ending. Some stars who once captured the hearts of fans and were celebrated worldwide eventually saw their careers crumble in ways no one could have imagined. From personal scandals and in-ring accidents to bad decisions and backstage conflicts, their fame collapsed almost overnight. Let's take a look at these tragic stories, where the once blinding spotlight suddenly went dark, leaving behind nothing but regret. Goldberg, a bitter ending for a wrestling icon. Goldberg will always be remembered as one of the most dominant forces in wrestling history, a powerhouse who went on an incredible undefeated streak in WCW and could electrify an arena in just minutes. But ironically, when he first stepped into WWE, his career didn't end with glory. Instead, it came to a disappointing close that Goldberg himself has admitted was difficult to accept. From the start, his WWE run was rocky. Goldberg and Vince McMahon never saw eye to eye. On one side was a WCW legend still glowing with star power, on the other a hard-nosed promoter determined to control every detail. The clash of egos made their relationship tense from day one, and as a result, Goldberg's WWE journey was anything but smooth. Fans expected fireworks and unforgettable classics, but what they got instead was a mixed bag, some strong moments overshadowed by frustration. Things got even worse as Goldberg's contract neared its end. He was ready to move on, and at the same time, Brock Lesnar, WWE's young rising star, decided to walk away too. Their final showdown became a boiling point for all the disappointment. WrestleMania XX should have been their stage to prove themselves. Instead, the Madison Square Garden crowd hijacked the match. Knowing both men were leaving, fans booed relentlessly, showering the ring with chants of mockery. Thousands of people openly turned their backs on the match, waiting only for the moment when special referee Stone Cold Steve Austin hit his famous stunner and celebrated with beer. That scene became one of the most infamous black marks in wrestling history. For Goldberg, it was one of the bitterest experiences of his career. He entered WWE with legendary status but left under a cloud of rejection. Both he and Lesnar suffered reputational damage, leaving behind a legacy remembered more for failure than triumph. Fortunately, time gave Goldberg a chance to redeem himself. When he returned in 2016, WWE set up a rematch with Lesnar. This time, the story was different. The build-up, the execution, and the fan reaction all proved that Goldberg was still a legend worthy of respect. Yet no matter how much he restored his image, that first WWE exit remains a scar, an unhappy ending to the opening chapter of his WWE career. Buff Bagwell, a collapse just as the door opened. Few WWE careers ended as abruptly and painfully as Buff Bagwell's. In WCW, he was seen as a promising star, handsome, charismatic, and capable of standing out in the ring. While he never quite reached the level of wrestling's biggest names, many believed he still had the tools to break through if given the right opportunity. That opportunity seemed to arrive in 2001 when WWE purchased WCW. Dozens of new faces crossed over, and Bagwell was one of them. It should have been a turning point, a chance to showcase his talent to a worldwide audience. But fate had other plans. In his first big appearance, Bagwell faced Booker T in a WCW championship match on Raw. Instead of making a statement, the match turned into a disaster. The expectations were high, but WWE fans had been conditioned for years to see WCW as second-rate. When Booker T and Bagwell were suddenly placed in the main event spotlight, the crowd rejected it entirely. Rather than cheering, fans booed and heckled throughout, suffocating the atmosphere. Veteran commentator Jim Ross later called it an abnormally bad performance, memorable only for the wrong reasons. Worse still, Bagwell never got another chance to recover. Backstage issues began to surface, rumors of personal conflicts and unprofessional behavior. Instead of patience, WWE chose to cut ties quickly. Within weeks of his debut, Bagwell was released, bringing his WWE career to an end before it had even begun. In later interviews, Bagwell expressed frustration, accusing Jim Ross of spreading false stories that cost him his job. Whatever the truth, nothing could change the reality. The biggest chance of his life slipped away in the blink of an eye. Buff Bagwell may never have been destined for legendary status, but he deserved to be remembered for more than one humiliating failure. Unfortunately, his name in WWE history is forever tied to a brief, painful Rosey, the forgotten hero. Among the many names tied to the legendary Anoa'i I dynasty, Rosey may be one of the most overlooked. Born into a family where wrestling ran deep in the blood, brother of Roman Reigns, cousin of Umaga, nephew of Alpha, related to Yokozuna, Rikishi, and even The Rock, it seemed like Rosey's path to greatness was set. Yet ironically, once he stepped into WWE, he was never given the chance to truly prove his potential. From the very beginning, Rosey showed he had the tools to be a lasting star. With a massive yet surprisingly agile frame, he combined sheer power with a natural connection to the crowd. Teaming with Jamal, later known as Umaga, in 3-Minute Warning, Rosey delivered moments of pure chaos that made an impression at a time when WWE needed fresh faces. But when the team split, his career momentum stalled. WWE then repackaged him as the superhero in training, partnering with the Hurricane. At first, fans were entertained. The comedy skits and light-hearted energy gave Rosey visibility on TV. But the gimmick quickly lost steam. The humor faded, and instead of being portrayed as a legitimate powerhouse, Rosey was trapped in a goofy role that stripped away his credibility. Once the laughs stopped, the character became a burden rather than a boost. This was the cruel irony of his career. The superhero persona gave him exposure, but it also prevented him from being taken seriously. When fan interest died down, WWE had no reason to keep investing in him. His release felt inevitable, a premature end to a career that never reached its ceiling. Looking back, it's hard not to feel regret. Rosey had the pedigree, the size, and the charisma to be more than a side act. Yet instead of being celebrated as a star, he was reduced to a short-lived comedy character before fading from WWE entirely. The tragedy deepened in 2017 when Rosey passed away at a young age. He never got the chance to return and rewrite his final chapter, never got to show that he was capable of more. For fans, he will always remain the forgotten hero, a talent left untapped and a painful reminder of how ruthless the wrestling industry can be. The Godfather. When the spotlight turns into a sideshow. Charles Wright was one of the rare WWE performers who managed to survive across eras by constantly reinventing himself. From the sinister Papa Shango, to the street-fighting Kama, to the Good Father, Wright proved time and again that he could adapt. But the character that brought him closest to the fans, and ultimately dragged down his career, was none other than the Godfather, the flamboyant, pimp persona. During the Attitude Era, the Godfather was a phenomenon. His flashy style, over-the-top confidence, and entourage of escorts sent crowds into a frenzy every time he walked down the ramp. His catchphrases became part of the show's identity, cementing Wright as a fan favorite. Yet within that success lay the seeds of controversy. With a gimmick tied so closely to sex and adult themes, watchdog groups like the Parents Television Council began to put pressure on WWE. Instead of immediately dropping the character, Vince McMahon tried to parody the situation with the creation of Right to Censor, a faction made up of former, offensive characters turned into hypocritical moral crusaders. Wright was repackaged as the Good Father, a complete reversal of his prior persona. The satire worked for a while, but it was never more than a temporary fix. Once the group disbanded, Wright slipped back into his Godfather role, and that's when the problems began. By the early 2000s, WWE had moved on. The shock value of the Attitude Era was fading, and the Godfather's act no longer clicked with the audience. What had once been funny and exciting now felt outdated. The breaking point came during the infamous wedding of Billy and Chuck, where the Godfather appeared in a segment widely condemned as tasteless and offensive. Rather than reviving his character, the angle further damaged his image and marked the beginning of the end for his WWE run. Though Charles Wright was later honored with induction into the WWE Hall of Fame, the truth remains, his career closed on a sour, almost embarrassing note. Fans still remember the Godfather fondly as a character who brought fun and energy to an era defined by excess. But they also remember how he left, a cautionary tale of how a once-beloved gimmick can quickly become a burden when the times change and you fail to adapt. Lita, an undeserved ending for a legend. If you had to name one of the most influential women in WWE history, Lita's name would be impossible to leave out. With her fearless style, bold personality, and high-risk offense, Amy Dumas became a role model for an entire generation of female wrestlers. At a time when most women in WWE were used primarily for eye candy, Lita stood apart, a daring athlete who flew through the air with the same intensity as her male counterparts. During the Attitude Era, she and Trish Stratus forged one of wrestling's most iconic rivalries. Their battles weren't just women's matches, they became milestones in WWE history. Lita proved that women could headline and shine through real talent, not just appearances. But as her career wound down, her image took a darker turn. In her final years, she played mostly as a heel, partly due to the real-life love triangle between her, Matt Hardy, and Edge, a story WWE turned into a major on-screen angle. The fallout was brutal. Crowds turned on her, often pelting her with chants filled with insults and harsh words. For anyone, even a star as tough as Lita, walking into an arena to hear thousands shouting degrading things was emotionally crushing. Still, she remained professional and kept giving her all. When she decided to retire, there were no major disputes with WWE. On paper, it should have been a respectful farewell, worthy of all she had done for women's wrestling. But reality told a different story. In her final segment before leaving, aside from later special appearances, WWE scripted a skit where her personal belongings were sold off in a mock wholesale. Even though it was just a storyline, the humiliation was real. It felt like a slap in the face, masked as entertainment. For someone who had dedicated years to elevating women's wrestling, it was an unworthy send-off. That moment left a bitter memory for fans. Instead of a grand tribute, Lita was forced to exit in embarrassment. Yes, she was later honored with a Hall of Fame induction and celebrated in major events, but the scar of that farewell never faded. It stands as a reminder that even legends can be treated unfairly, and sometimes they don't get the exit they truly deserve. Droz, a career ended by tragedy. WWE has seen many careers end in heartbreak, but few tragedies were as devastating as what happened to Darren Drozdov, better known as Droz. What made his story even more painful was how quickly it ended, before he even had the chance to establish himself. When he first arrived, WWE leaned into his unusual real-life ability to vomit on command, turning it into a bizarre gimmick. While it caught people's attention, it was hardly a foundation for a long career. To give him a stronger role, WWE placed him in the legendary Legion of Doom, temporarily replacing Hawk. But that was nearly impossible pressure. No newcomer could truly fill the shoes of one of the greatest tag teams in wrestling history. Despite the rocky start, Droz worked hard to prove himself. Breaking away from being the replacement, he began developing as a colorful heel, winning over some fans with his rebellious energy. Just when it seemed like he was finding his stride, fate dealt him the cruelest blow. In 1999, during a match with D'Lo Brown, disaster struck. A botched powerbomb sent Droz crashing down on his neck. The impact shattered 2 vertebrae, leaving him instantly paralyzed. In a single moment, his career and life changed forever. Doctors fought to restore his mobility, and Droz showed incredible resilience. He eventually regained limited upper body movement and lived with the help of a wheelchair. But medically, he would remain a quadriplegic. WWE supported him financially and emotionally for years afterward, but no assistance could ever replace the dream that was ripped away in an instant. Droz's story is a harsh reminder of the dangers behind the spectacle of pro wrestling. Beneath the bright lights and roaring crowds, there's always the risk that one wrong move can alter a life forever. For Droz, his career didn't end with booze, rejection, or bad booking. It ended with a tragedy that could never be undone. And that makes his story one of the saddest endings the wrestling world has ever seen. Muhammad Hassan. When bad timing destroys a career. Mark Kapani, better known as Muhammad Hassan, is perhaps the clearest example of how showing up at the wrong time can completely derail a WWE career. When he debuted in 2004, Hassan was introduced as an Arab-American character, a concept that could have explored themes of prejudice and social commentary. Instead, it was launched in the highly sensitive aftermath of the 9/11 attacks in the US, and what could have been a thought-provoking storyline quickly turned into controversial shock entertainment. Hassan's character was placed in segments designed to provoke outrage. In one infamous moment against The Undertaker, Hassan dropped to his knees to pray in the ring, only for a group of masked men in camouflage to storm in and attack The Undertaker with crude weapons. While WWE may have intended drama, the imagery was far too close to terrorism for comfort. With no explanation of who these men were or why they were involved, the storyline felt messy and unsettling. Instead of highlighting injustice and discrimination, Hassan was portrayed in a way that many found offensive, turning him into a lightning rod for controversy rather than a showcase of talent. Things only got worse after the London bombings in 2005. Segments involving Hassan were suddenly viewed as tasteless and deeply insensitive, sparking outrage in the US media. WWE couldn't continue pushing the character without facing massive backlash, and killing off Mohammed Hassan became inevitable. He disappeared from television entirely, leaving behind the sense that WWE squandered a promising opportunity because they mishandled a delicate situation. Hassan's final appearance was just as tragic. In his last match against The Undertaker, he was thrown off the stage in a dramatic fashion, essentially written off as killed on screen, with no tribute or proper closure. For fans, it felt like a blow to both Kopani's dignity and his career potential. Shortly afterward, he vanished from WWE and quietly left wrestling altogether, remembered only as a star who debuted too soon and was erased from WWE's memory in just a few months. The story of Mohammed Hassan serves as a painful reminder. In professional wrestling, timing, social context, and character presentation can make or break a career. For Kopani, his downfall wasn't a lack of talent but the unfortunate climate of the era. A heartbreaking example that even skilled performers can be erased if they're introduced at the wrong time. Chyna, a lost legend. Joan Laura, better known to the world as Chyna, remains one of the most unique figures in WWE history. With her unmatched strength and remarkable in-ring skills, she shattered gender barriers in professional wrestling, proving that women could compete on equal footing with men. From her role as the ninth wonder of the world in D-Generation X to her battles against top male stars like Jeff Jarrett and Chris Jericho, Chyna carved out a legacy that can never be erased. Yet her brilliant career didn't end the way it should have. In her final years with WWE, Chyna struggled with character direction and backstage conflicts. Once DX dissolved, she lost her spotlight in major storylines, and the chances to develop her own persona became scarce. Despite her undeniable popularity, WWE failed to fully harness her potential, leaving her drifting through lackluster angles that never matched her abilities. Her departure from the company made her story even sadder. There was no grand farewell, no final match to honor her contributions. Instead, she left quietly, leaving fans with a deep sense of disappointment. It was a stark reminder of WWE's harsh reality. Even groundbreaking stars could be forgotten if they no longer fit the company's narrative. Outside the ring, Chyna battled personal struggles and relentless public pressure, making her journey even more complicated. The combination of her extraordinary talent, incredible power, and WWE's limitations created a story that was both inspiring and tragic. She inspired a generation of women to break through traditional boundaries, yet she never received the ending she deserved. For many, her career stands as one of wrestling's greatest tragedies. Today, Chyna is still remembered as the ninth wonder of the world, a legend beyond replacement. But her story leaves an unshakable sense of regret. For all that she gave, she deserved more, both in her career and in her legacy. Her life is a powerful reminder that talent and strength don't always guarantee recognition, and that even legends can fade away in heartbreak. Sunny, from spotlight to darkness. Sunny was once one of WWE's brightest female stars of the 1990s. For longtime fans, the image of a stunning, charismatic woman who instantly stole the spotlight every time she appeared is unforgettable. During the transition from the new generation to the bold, edgy, attitude era, Sunny embodied glamour, influence, and entertainment. She wasn't just a manager, she was a phenomenon. She joined WWE in 1995 with her then-boyfriend, debuting as part of the Body Donnas. While the team itself never became a major success, Sunny's presence immediately drew attention. It didn't take long for her career to outgrow the group. She went on to manage top names like Farouk Assad and the Godwins, worked with multiple tag teams, and became a versatile on-screen figure. Sunny also frequently appeared as a guest commentator, adding fresh energy and flair to WWE programming. Although she never showcased the wrestling ability later female superstars would bring, her beauty and charisma made her indispensable. At her peak, she was a media sensation, one of the most downloaded women on the internet in 1996. WWE hadn't yet introduced the Divas division, but Sunny had already set the standard future female stars would chase for years. But the fame didn't last forever. Cracks began to show as she fell into a destructive lifestyle fueled by drugs and partying. Her unprofessional behavior, no-shows, and personal scandals chipped away at her standing. From being a central figure, Sunny slowly faded into obscurity, consumed by her own downfall. Her darkest chapter began in 2012, marked by a string of legal troubles, including multiple arrests in just 1 month for everything from disorderly conduct to theft and violating court orders. By 2013, she served a 4-month jail sentence, followed by another 3 months in 2015. Between 2016 and 2021, her decline only worsened, with countless violations ranging from probation breaches to DUIs and illegal weapon possession. Each incident pulled her further away from the stardom she once owned. Tragedy struck again in March 2022 when Sunny was involved in a drunk driving accident that killed a 75-year-old man, sending shockwaves through the wrestling world. Once idolized by millions, she now faced severe criminal charges. The once vibrant Sunny was nearly unrecognizable in jail, aged, drained, and broken from years of substance abuse and incarceration. Once a symbol of empowerment, confidence, and influence, Sunny's fall became a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame without discipline. From being one of WWE's first female icons to a life marred by legal battles and personal demons, her story is a reminder that the spotlight cannot forever mask the shadows of real life. Owen Hart, a tragic ending never forgotten. Few moments in WWE history are as heartbreaking as the death of Owen Hart. The accident at Over the Edge 1999 remains one of wrestling's darkest days, and even now, remembering it still brings pain to fans around the world. It wasn't just the shocking nature of his passing, it was the fact that Owen Hart was one of the most gifted wrestlers of his generation, destined for greatness, until fate cruelly intervened. Born into the legendary Hart family of Calgary, Owen was trained from childhood to be in the ring. He combined technical mastery with a natural ability to connect with the crowd, whether in singles matches or tag team action. Every move he delivered carried precision and passion, making him a fan favorite. Yet, despite his undeniable skill, he was never truly given the main event spotlight that he deserved. Fans always believed they would one day see him holding the WWE Championship, but destiny had other plans. In his later years, Owen portrayed the colorful superhero-like character, the Blue Blazer. While the gimmick was meant to be fun, it limited him to comedic segments and failed to showcase the full extent of his talent. For someone of Owen's caliber, the role felt beneath him, masking the brilliance he could truly offer. Sadly, that light-hearted gimmick would become tied to the tragedy that ended his life. On May 23, 1999, disaster struck. As part of his entrance, Owen was supposed to descend from the rafters in his blue blazer costume. But the harness malfunctioned, sending him plummeting from a deadly height into the ring. The fall caused fatal injuries, taking his life instantly before the horrified audience. His passing wasn't just a devastating loss for WWE, but a shockwave felt across the entire wrestling world. Even decades later, Owen Hart's memory lives on. Fans remember not only his incredible skill and classic matches, but also his courage, humor, and dedication to the business. Though his career ended in tragedy, the love and respect for Owen Hart have never faded. His name remains a symbol of unfulfilled greatness, a reminder of a career cut short too soon, leaving behind both inspiration and heartbreak. These are heartbreaking stories of WWE stars who once stood at the peak of glory but saw their careers end in the most tragic ways. If you'd like to discover more secrets and untold truths about the world of wrestling, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video.